In section 4, we are moving on to multiplying fractions. Again, just like the sections before this, we'll start with a review of some basic multiplying fractions, and then we'll move on to ones that involve simplifying variable expressions. So the first section just says to multiply fractions. One thing you need to remember when you multiply and divide fractions, you do not need a common denominator. So you can just multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. What we're going to look at, though, are ways to simplify first before you actually multiply, just to make your life a little bit easier. Now, the first thing you want to do is decide if your final answer is going to be negative or positive. So for this first one, I have negative 20 over 33 times negative 3 over 11. So I'm doing a negative times a negative, so I know my final answer is going to be positive. So I'm going to go ahead and write a positive sign over here just so I know that that's what my final answer is going to be. Now, instead of just actually multiplying 20 times 3 and 33 times 11, I'm going to write it as one big fraction first and see if there's anything that I can simplify. When I say that, I mean anything on the top and the bottom that can be divided by the same thing. So 3 and 33 can both be divided by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 33 divided by 3 is 11. So now instead of doing 20 times 3 and 33 times 11, I'm going to do 20 times 1, which is 20, and 11 times 11, which is 121. And I said earlier my final answer is positive. Now, if you had multiplied 20 times 3 and 33 times 11, you would have eventually gotten this answer, but you would have had to simplify the fraction after you did the multiplication. For number 2, I have positive 51 times negative 5 over 6, so I know my final answer is going to be negative. I'm going to go ahead and write that out front. I'm going to write this all as one big multiplication problem, so I'm going to do 51 times 5 over 1 times 6, because 51 is the same thing as 51 over 1. I look at this, 51 and 6 can both be divided by 3, so 51 divided by 3 is 17, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So now when I multiply, 17 times 5 is 85, 1 times 2 is 2, and we said that it's going to be negative. I need to simplify this as far as possible, which means I need to make this a mixed number, which would be 42 and 1/2. So that would be my final answer here. On the next section, we're multiplying mixed numbers. And when we're multiplying mixed numbers, it's always going to be easiest to turn them into improper fractions first. So 2 and 1/12 I can rewrite as 25 over 12. That's 12 times 2 plus 1. And then I'm going to multiply that by 4 over 1, just writing 4 as a fraction. Now I'm doing a positive times a positive, so my final answer is going to be positive. Now I can look and see if there's anything I can simplify. 4 and 12 can both be divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So I'll do 25 times 1, which is 25. 3 times 1 is 3. I need to keep simplifying that, so my final answer will be 8 and 1/3. If you need any help making improper fractions mixed numbers or making mixed numbers improper fractions, just ask your teacher for help. On number 2, I have a negative times a positive, so I know my final answer is going to be negative. 9 times 5 plus 1 is 46, so I have 46 over 9. And then 13 times 2 plus 4 is 30, so I have 30 over 13. I can look and see if anything can be simplified. 30 and 9 can both be divided by 3. So 30 divided by 3 is 10, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. My final answer is going to be negative. 46 times 10 is 460. 3 times 13 is going to 3 times 13 is going to be 39. And then I need to simplify this and turn it into a mixed number. So when I do that, I'll get negative 11 and 31 over 39. So that'll be my final answer. So that's a review of multiplying fractions and multiplying mixed numbers, like you have in the past. In the next section, we're going to look at doing the same thing, but with variable expressions. So the directions say to simplify the expression. So I have multiplication. So first thing I have to decide is my answer going to be positive or negative. For number 1, I'm doing a positive times a positive, so I'll get a positive answer. Then I can write 3y times y to the 5th on the top, and then I'll do 4 times 9 on the bottom. So looking at my numbers, I can divide 3 divided by 3 is 1, 9 divided by 3 is 3. So now I can multiply. Y times y to the 5th is y to the 6th. 4 times 3 is 12. So I'm all done there. Looking at the next one, I've got positive x to the 4th over 6 times negative 16x over 3. So a positive times a negative is going to give me a negative final answer. So I have x to the 4th times 16x on the top and 6 times 3 on the bottom. 16 and 6 can both be divided by 2. So this will become an 8 and this will become a 3. So on the top I'll have negative 8x to the 4th, and on the bottom I'll have 9. 3 times 3 is 9. Number 3, I have a positive times a positive, so I'm going to have a positive final answer. I have 3z to the 5th times 2z to the 4th on the top. I have 25 times 15 on the bottom. 3 and 15 can both be divided by 3, so 3 divided by 3 is 1. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So on the top, I wind up with 2z to the 9th. And on the bottom, I wind up with 125. That can't be simplified any further, so I'm done there. All right, I'm going to leave number 4 for you guys to try. Remember, before you do anything else, you need to decide if your answer is going to be positive or negative. Looking at the backside, it says to evaluate the expression, so we have more than one operation going on here. For number 1, we have all multiplication, so the first thing I'm going to decide it's going to be positive or negative. So I'm doing a negative times a negative, which is a positive, and then a positive times a negative, so I'll get a positive times a positive, so I'll get a positive final answer. For this, I can just write everything, all my numerators on the top as multiplication, all my denominators on the bottom as multiplication. And then I can just look and see if we have anything in common. So 8 and 4 can both be divided by 4. So 8 will become a 2. This 4 will become a 1. 3 and 15 can both be divided by 3. So the 3 becomes a 1. And the 15 becomes a 5. So we're just left with 4 on the top and 25 on the bottom. For number 2, we have multiplication and addition. So we're going to have to multiply first. So 5 over 6 times negative 3 over 20 is going to give me a negative final answer. I can do 5 times 3 on the top, 6 times 20 on the bottom. 5 and 20 can both be divided by 5, so I'll have a 1 on the top and a 4 on the bottom. 3 and 6 can both be divided by 3, so 1 and 2. So that gives me negative 1 over 8. Now I still need to do 3 plus that. And so you could rewrite this if you want. You could find common denominators, but I know that if I do 3 minus 1/8, I'm left with 2 and 7/8 because I'm just taking 1/8 off of that. I'm going to leave the word problem for you guys to try, and then make sure you also do these review problems. Remember, you have to do the review problems before you can move on to the check-in.